Natarajan.
Is the universe aligning to get Indian real estate out of its worst slowdown witnessed in recent history? That's the big question we are asking today in the Realty Debate. Welcome everyone, I'm Manisha Natarajan. Just about every citizen of India has been waiting for the Achhe Din to materialize. And while industry players themselves have been hoping for the worst to be over since 2015, it's only now that we on the Property Show believe that the time is right for a turnaround to start. Indicators like the GDP, monsoon, FDI, interest rates likely to soften further are some of the possible big triggers. There are strong signals from the sector itself. There's remarkable recovery in the office space market. There's REITs, which is becoming more and more possible with rules changing and becoming more amenable. And then there's RERA for the customer, which will restore confidence. All of this could bring about a meaningful re-rating of the sector. Now let's find out whether we're reading the big picture right or not. And joining me today are Anshul Jain, Executive Managing Director, South Asia, Cushman & Wakefield. Also with me, JC Sharma, VC and MD, Sobha Limited, who calls the spade a spade. So he will really be able to tell us whether we're reading the picture right or not. Here with me in the Delhi studio, Shailesh Pathak, Executive Director of Bhartiya Group, Naveen Raheja, Chairman FICCI and CMD Raheja Developers, and Sunil Rohakale, MD and CEO of ASK Group. So we've got all corners covered. Gentlemen, we all know what's going on. If I look at some of the numbers, I mean, you've got just so much happening. You've got GDP numbers, 7.9%, call it statistics, call it anything, but it is a number that you can't deny. You've got industrial production looking reasonably okay. I've named some of the top signals, but which signal do you think will work specifically? What are you confident about? Let me start with Mr. Sharma. In the industry, sir, how are you feeling? Are you feeling a little more confident now than you were, let's say, in January 2016?
We have always been quite positive about the market and the regions what we have selected for ourselves. And we do believe, as you have very correctly started, that it's a work in progress. Things are happening at all the fronts the way they were expected to be. The interest rates are declining. Office space absorption is improving. Rental yields are improving. And with the rate coming, today at 8.5 to 9%, people are going for the deals. And if we look at from our angle also, our second largest ever group housing project is being launched just now, which means that we believe that even in the NCR market, Gurgaon, we believe that yes, there are signs of that optimism where we can take this kind of a call of going ahead with 3.3 million square feet of development. So we are quite positive that this is a work in progress where things are bound to look better and better as we move forward.
All right. Okay. So here's my question to you. You said that you're going to take that big punt with a market which got affected the most, which is Gurgaon NCR, and going to do a big launch. Project launches across the country have fallen by more than 50%. Amongst all of these things, what do you think will play the most critical role? Will it be interest rates softening further? What exactly will be the biggest trigger for real estate?
See, the interest rates make lot of difference. If you have reduction of, say, 100 basis points on a 50 lakhs rupees loan, you are saving 7 to 8 lakhs rupees during the life cycle of that particular loan. That is what the cost they pay less. So when the prices are right, interest rates have declined, and overall RERA protection to the customer is there, at some point of time, the sentiments, which is the only differentiating factor between these people taking the call or not taking the call.
Okay. So I think, sir, you've said sentiments. Now let's work on that sentiment question. Here is a Bangalore developer, most reputed, one of the most reputed ones, Mr. Raheja, taking a call on your market. That's your territory. Are you confident? Are you thinking that this is a market which was beaten down so much, which is now likely to go up? Because transactions in Gurgaon, I've heard, slip to dismal numbers like 1 or 2 a month.
They are happening now. And let me tell you, as I look at MIS every day,
Okay.
Since last 6 months, it is gradually improving, and I think it is improving and getting close to the number which we used to have in about 2012. So we are reaching there. We are logging in 5, 6 apartments every day now.
Okay.
And believe me, last year we were struggling to get even one or two a day.
So you're saying that the numbers are beginning to look close to 2012, which was probably the best year we saw post-Lehman crisis.
So they are increasing, but we have to, let me admit one more thing, one rider on this. You have to, these numbers are by actual users now. At that time, there used to be people who were largely investors.
Okay. So you're
But
saying
now they are
end
actual
users have come in and end users have started biting the apple. They're not wary of it anymore. Anshul Jain, look at the larger picture for us and tell us, most property consultants, their job is to not scare anybody and to talk only positive things. Otherwise, out of the studio, the developers will catch your neck and say, hey, you're working for us or against us. So tell me honestly, these are just early green shoots, or are we being a little too optimistic looking at the larger macro indicators?
Absolutely early green shoots, but that's the good news. The green shoots are there. Just zoom you back to 2013 or 14 when I used to travel internationally talking about India. It was very, very difficult to get a meeting overseas, whether it was with a fund or anyone who was interested in India at that point in time. Coming back to 2016, what this government has successfully done is put India back on the international map. And I think if there's one significant success of the government overseas is to do that. As a result, money has started flowing back into the country, not only in the realty sector, but enabling broad investments across the corporate sector. And I think that's the most important bit. Because as the investments and expansion in the corporate sector will take place, which has been happening in the last couple of years, we've seen a cascading effect into the commercial realty sector, which has improved quite significantly. And that will eventually have an effect on the residential sector. Stuff like RERA, etc., will help absolutely. But fundamental changes like GST coming in will improve the ease of doing business. Taking us back perhaps to our 3 years, which is 2005-07, which India saw, in probably, it could probably be 17-20 or 18-21. And those are the years where you'll see a real revival. So I think green shoots at this point in time, perhaps a year to go before, the entire sector, including the residential, takes off.
Shailesh Pathak, what's your own reading? Just before starting this show, you were sounding very positive about Bhartiya International City and then talking about how actually things have been fairly good in terms of sales. But have they been lower than what you expected at the start of your project? And going forward, are there any challenges you see at all? Or do you believe that this is only the first step and we'll only keep climbing higher?
Manisha, let me come to Bhartiya City at the end. Fact number one, Gurgaon today reduced its circle rates by 15%.
Absolutely, big news.
Fact number two, I was there in the Prime Minister's Smart City event in Pune, and he openly made a statement that cities have the capacity to digest poverty. He said, "Garibi ko pachane ki taakat rakhti hai shahar," and the biggest employer in cities is housing. And he specifically again mentioned in an interview that housing creates the maximum employment, and by 2022, a lot of houses have to be made. So let me just come to an opinion. 3 years ago, those of you watching this program, were you absolutely sure that 1 year down the line your job was safe? Today, you probably think your job is safe 1 year down the line because the economy is doing better. That is the big reason. To add to Mr. Sharma's point about interest rate, the surety of my continuing cash flow is a very important determinant in my decision to buy a home. So that's why I think, because we are all looking for better times, now is the time. If you're an end user, don't hesitate, go ahead and buy. If you're an investor, do not, because investing in shares is far better today than investing in real estate. That's my broad macro.
Sunil Rohakale, actually for PE investors, the downturn has been one of the best times for investments. But tell us honestly, you deal with developers very, very closely. You can sense and smell the distress which is still there. and the distress which they're coming out of, do you feel that the worst is behind us truly?
I think there is no debate on improving the macro of the country, and the micro trend also is improving. So government balance sheet is definitely getting stronger and stronger. The individual balance sheet also, by virtue of reduction in the interest rate, lowering inflation and positive returns on the investments because of the lower inflation, is also getting stronger. And the good news is that no job losses. But the important stakeholder for real estate is the developer. The developer balance sheet is the most distorted ever in the lifetime what I have seen. And I think the biggest challenge at this point of time are two. I think the sentiment of the consumer is nothing to do with really an interest rate, frankly, completely. It is not to do with the GST or any of the FDI policies government has announced. But I think the biggest sentiment spoiler at this point of time is the delayed execution of the projects, because the sentiment gets more nervous because the consumer who has booked it with so much hope that apartments would be delivered to him, and the apartments are not getting delivered. I think the delivery of the delayed projects is really a sentiment spoiler. And I think the second important part is the drying up the cash flows of the developer balance sheet, which probably is the real cause of the slowing the construction or less moving the crane. So to my mind, as far as the commercial is concerned, it is maybe one can see a naked eye, a commonsensical investor also will see there is a revival. But as far as residential is concerned, the revival is not of the industry, but the revival is very, very topical. And the topical part is to do with the developer and the ones who are actually constructing, delivering the projects where the cranes are moving.
Right.
I think there we could see the sales velocities have started improving. And the developers who probably have developed are constructed well and focused on execution, I think their cost of funds also have come down dramatically low.
Anshul Jain, this is a problem in residential, and that's perhaps the biggest reason why the rub-off of commercial is not spilling over to residential, and it's taking so much time. Tell me, how will this pan out? I mean, the developer balance sheets distortment and the fact that you don't even know. I mean, to a common man, he has no idea of, other than the marquee 20 names, 25 names across the country, he has no idea whose balance sheet is distressed, who's not, who will deliver, who's not going to deliver. So there will be a painful period as well. I mean, all the pain is not behind. We must accept that too.
Absolutely. I think it's almost unfair to expect the consumer to know those details. And I think RERA is a great progress in that direction. I think what needs to happen is beyond the top 25 developers, there's too much this proliferation of developers in the industry, and there are too many small developers. There's almost a need for a forced consolidation of some sorts in the industry so that balance sheets can be cleared up. But equally, it's a great opportunity for private equity players to come in and provide that finishing capital at a level where products can be finished. I think the whole residential sales model would undergo a change, and rather than seeing too many pre-launches or developers relying on pre-launches to fund the development, you'll probably see more funding coming through, whether it's through the private channels, whether it's through the regular banking channels, and developers attempting to do a substantial amount of completion before they expect substantial amount of sales. So I think the sales models will eventually get forced to change from reliance on pre-launch to reliance on private money to build to a certain extent and then sell.
Okay. Mr. Sharma, how will this play out? So leave aside developers such as you. Yes, there is unsold inventory, which will have to actually pan out in any micro market where there's a lot of unsold inventory, too many launches, will take some time to get out. But assuming that gets taken care of, there are so many projects, so many developers with stretched balance sheets who are stuck. How will that get out of the market? I mean, how will the dynamics play out there? Will large, strong developers like you be ready to build them out at the right cost? And will PE investors provide the right cost financing? Because right now they're charging an arm and a leg to provide that finishing capital?
See, the capital is a risky proposition, so they will weigh the risk and accordingly they have been providing the funds. I think the too much of greed of the developers in the past, where they believe they can keep the prices high and they can afford to pay a higher rate of interest, sort of an environment where they believe that demand will continue to keep rising along with the increase in prices, they become a willy-nilly partner where they are suffering, and along with that the private equity guys also are suffering today. At the end of the day, if they are not able to take the money out, whatever documents we talk about of a higher rate of interest, how many of them will be able to earn it, it is doubtful.
Right.
Coming back to whether companies like ours will be able to take advantage of that, we are definitely looking for opportunities. See, take for instance again our this investment in Gurgaon. This project was with us. We thought that we should not be taking it forward 3 years back. Then again we decided last year that yes, market is bound to show improvement. Why not join hands with our landlord who has given a clean title, and our 160 acre of investment already is there. So we have gone ahead. And we believe likewise in Bangalore also you have seen couple of transactions where local developer has tried to help the developer who has come from outside by
Right.
buying out their assets.
All right. I know that Sunil is really has a point of view in terms of cost of money available in the market to this industry. So Sunil, at what price will you continue to do business, and as interest rates soften, because it's very clear with Governor Rajan going out that one of the sticky points with most industrialists was that he was not aggressive on rate cuts, and he could have been a little bit more aggressive on rate cuts. So weigh out that scenario for us and tell us what will happen to the cost of capital, which is now the biggest requirement or oxygen needed by the industry.
See, I feel today really the issue is to have a long-term capital, a patient capital, and not really the cost of capital. Because today, accumulated guaranteed high-cost debt, whether it's the NBFCs or a mezzanine funding, which short-term in nature, and they are the kind of project progress has happened is not really sufficient to service the high cost debt or a mezzanine funding. So today what is most important is that we need a money which is patient, which is the money which is for 4-year, 5-year, 6-year money. The money cost is a function of the risk what one is taking. So I think the argument should not be on the cost of capital, because equity by nature, the equity investor also is taking an equity risk of demand supply. So my sense is that today there is a replacement capital and there is a musical chair which is happening between the lenders need to convert that into a long only funds, which is patient funds, so that the market may be looking anemic today. The market is definitely bound to improve with the growing the macros and the micro of the economy, including the real estate of the industry. So I feel whether it is 17-18 or 18-19, it will be very unfair to assume that sales velocities will not improve.
Fair enough. Shailesh, you've got a point to add to this?
Yes, I think the real estate industry can access finance. It's again a matter of demand and supply, and long only funds will only come in when the construction risk is over. So you are seeing a lot of developed commercial space going into REIT structures. But I'd just say that, you know, Raghuram Rajan had a very good word of advice for the real estate industry, saying bring down prices, demand will increase.
And that's exactly what Mr. Sharma said. I mean, you can't keep
Mr.
selling
Sharma
at
said
very
the
high
same thing.
prices.
But
Yeah.
what we're really hurting, the real estate industry is really hurting, and where the government can help us, not only the union government but the state governments and the cities, is TLC. Taxes, land and clearances. There are just too many taxes, cascading taxes. Land is getting no cheaper and clearances take forever. So I know that on all three elements the union government is working hard. The only thing I'll say is what I saw in Pune over the weekend is that the 50 lakh plus market is nearly moribund, but the 20 lakhs to 30 lakhs market is doing rather well. So all of us developers are actually looking at 2 BHKs and smaller, and to enable that to happen, I think The biggest
The
thing
TLC
is land,
is
the
required.
TLC.
Okay. Mr. Raheja, TLC sounds like music to your ears as well. But I mean, overall good feeling and you'll continue to demand through FICCI these three things, taxes, land
And
and
clearances.
clearances?
So Venkaiah Naidu Garu has actually implemented this online clearance system for Delhi and Mumbai, which is really commendable, which should be replicated in all cities.
Well, yes,
No,
if it works.
but by what time it actually becomes
Right.
implemented,
Right.
that is the question. And in the area, at least in Delhi, where it has been done, where is the project for developers
no
in Delhi? There is no project.
Okay, so
it
let me
doesn't
ask you,
matter.
Mr. Raheja,
Now,
that
looking
Aman,
at TLC, actually what is on the ground, I think the developers know it very well. We don't need to define it. And
but are you feeling good about the future? Are you thinking that if not prices, at least sales are going to go up?
Sincere attempt is happening at the highest level.
Okay.
But on the ground, translation is far away.
That's actually what the Economist article also says, Anshul Jain. Final word from you, where they say that, look, I mean, in terms of all the macro noises, they're all right. You can question the GDP number, the way it's calculated, etc., etc. But now again, with oil prices benign, there are a lot of benefits. There's a huge PR exercise, which China is very worried about, India becoming so huge. But at the ground level, things are still going to take a long time to change. Now, is that the theory we're going to conclude with today? Or are we saying that there are just too many signals which are coming together to actually help revive the buying sentiment? I'm not going to talk about prices because there's still too much inventory in the market.
Talk to any CEO, Manisha, and ask him how much time has it taken him to turn around a firm or change the sentiments within a firm. And firms have limited number of people. We are talking about 1.2 billion and a democratic country, right? And you know the forces which operate. So it just takes a lot of time. But if you talk, the way you started and you basically encapsulated very well all the signals that's coming together, I think I can't remember everything coming together or even half of these signals coming together since 2008. So yes, I'm feeling very bullish about where we are, but also India and the business has taught me that it just takes, everything takes its sweet time. So I'm not expecting next quarter to be fantastic, but I remain very optimistic about the near future.
All right. Anshul Jain, J.C. Sharma, Shailesh Pathak, Naveen Raheja and Sunil Rohakale. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. This has been a very interesting discussion. I'm sure we should just keep doing this every 3 months, reading the signals and telling you. But I think there can't be a better time for the end buy. If you're looking for a home, monsoon up to Diwali, go shortlist a home that you want to buy. Like we said, no time for investors. If you're looking for rapid increases in your investments, not the time. But definitely for end buyers, it is the time to step in and zero in on the house that you want to buy. When we come back, we will specifically focus on the real estate markets of the southern cities, Bangalore, Chennai and Hyderabad. Well, these are cities which hold out hope. Some are, of course, struggling like Chennai, but Hyderabad has emerged out of a phoenix. What can we hope for in these three markets? Because they will also drive rest of India. 2016 outlook for Chennai market, Bangalore and Hyderabad included.
With Manisha Natarajan.
The state and the health of commercial office space is a key indicator of the economy and how it's doing. And if you look at India's top cities, it's Bangalore and Hyderabad, two southern cities which lead the pack on office space demand in the first half of 2016. Well, there should be a rub-off on residential real estate as well and result in a revival of demand for housing in these three cities. Is that visible? Is it likely to happen in the near future, or is it still some time away? Joining me today to discuss the real estate of India's top three southern cities is, of course, J.C. Sharma, Vice Chairman and MD, Sobha Limited. Also, Ajit Chodia joins us, Managing Director of Olympia Group. Jaggi Marwa, Managing Director, South India, JLL India, and Sahil Kapoor, ED, Remax India. So again, we've got all corners covered. Mr. Sharma, I'm going to come straight to you. I mean, looking at the Bangalore and Hyderabad numbers in terms of commercial office space, and right before the break, we talked about how larger economic indicators seem to be, outlining some good news. Yet, when I look at the Bangalore market, it's never looked more uncomfortable than how it is now. Why is it? Is it just a question of too much supply which needs to get out of the market in residential?
Manisha, I do not know why do we feel that way. I think the residential market as well also is able to keep up pace with the commercial absorption what is happening. We may be today launching many more projects of larger sizes than we have done it ever before. And Bangalore being the largest end user market, you find developers from all parts of India. You find that the private equity guys also are more proactive here. And in that scenario, sometimes when we look at like our dream acres with 7,000 units, it will be considered as part of that 80,000 to 100,000, the way people talk about as the inventory. But with JLL only, we have gone ahead and talked about that whether the inventory is declining or inventory is increasing. And they have come out with their studies that inventories have started declining since last 2 quarters. This was done about 2 quarters back.
Okay.
Our Bangalore performance for the last financial year has been the best ever. So I still believe that yes, vis-a-vis the kind of launches we expected to do better, but in absolute numbers, with the kind of price stability we have, we still remain positive and optimistic about the Bangalore market.
Okay, fair enough. And to corroborate what you've said, yes, the launches, especially in the first quarter of 2016 with 6,000 new residential units, it actually represented a 26% increase over the previous quarter. Jaggi, Marwa, do you agree with the fact that, okay, the last 2 quarters, it's not about green shoots. I mean, Bangalore's already established that sales have started picking up and in a very, very reasonable number, because I can see supplies picked up, but have sales numbers picked up? Has demand picked up?
I think Mr. Sharma's comment on the JLL report, which we released about 1.5 quarters ago, it directly reflects, that the story is not so gloomy as it actually appears. Okay. Sales velocity has picked up. There's no doubt about it. And I think there is a huge difference between the numbers that we were doing maybe 3 quarters ago and the numbers we're doing in the last 2 quarters. I think that has significantly increased. What has also increased is the actual creation of jobs, which has added to the city of Bangalore. If you take a dipstick survey of what has happened in the first quarter and the first half of this year, you must have read a report that was released that Bangalore is number 1 in terms of the absorption of office space, and that directly translates to the residential take-up also. For every 100,000 square feet of office supply, there are almost 1,000 jobs being created, and so that effect is actually going to rub off very fast into the residential side. What was not happening was in the recent past was that there was a lag between the real absorption. So the gross leasing area and the net leasing area, there was a big gap. That is slowly going to come up in the next 3-4 quarters when new supply hits the market in terms of office space.
All right. So then, Mr. Sharma, I'm going to hop back to you on Bangalore before we move on to other cities. Chennai will be next. So are you saying that there's some pricing power which has come back into the developer's hand, or do you believe that no, right now, looking at the situation, you would like to keep your products within that affordable range? When I talk about affordable, I'm talking about city affordable, not really the government definition of affordable, and not at least start raising prices in 2016?
I think the pricing power will take few more quarters. At the same time, we also need to recognize that the construction costs also are not going up. Earlier we used to struggle with the uncertainties of construction costs going up. When we are about to complete the project, we realize no inventory, and the prices we have paid for the construction has gone up considerably very high. Now you have good quantum of inventory also, good quantum of absorption also, and fair rate of construction cost. So we are quite happy selling at the current prices, where we are able to protect our margins and sustain the volumes. And this is what customers are also liking.
All right. So before Ajit Chodia, what's the situation on Chennai? Let's shift focus. Bangalore definitely has been a big winner. In fact, it's made it to the world's top 20 cities in terms of commercial office space, and the future But Chennai seems to have lost out. You've also had the big floods in December, which further dampened the sentiments, an election behind you. Are you as hopeful as Bangalore developers are for your city?
Yeah, I think if we really look at the Bangalore today, the Bangalore is choked. So if you said that there has been a rub-off effect into Hyderabad, the Hyderabad office market has gone up. I am sure in the days to come, Chennai is definitely going to see increased absorption of office space. You have seen, Karke, the trend. We have been consistently absorbing something like 4 to 5 million square feet of office space for the last 10 years. When the markets have been good or bad, this 4 million to 4.5 million square feet of office space has been going. So in the days to come, we are looking at the supply has got to come up. The Chennai developers have still not geared up, so that is a problem here. The land price is high, but I'm sure the government will be coming out with some sort of a policy to
How confident are you, Mr. Chodia? Your problem seems to be a lot to do with the government. I mean, there is a Mahindra which is wrapped out and said not Chennai. I mean, really, let's be honest. They've actually brought back the team on land acquisition and said no. So what's making you so hopeful? I'm sorry, this is a city that I so adore, and a part of my family lives there, and I would love for it to do very well, but you have had no change in government. Why are you hoping there'll be a change of heart with the same government?
I think, the signals have been very, very positive. After the new government has come, we have also had discussions with the political bosses as well as with the bureaucracy. And the direction seems to be very clear that ease of business, yes, that is what is going to come in the days. And there is no going back on that. Between the whatever you call the 201, the government which is there versus the earlier one, there is definitely a shift. The last 2 years, 3 years, yeah, I agree there could have been a much slowdown. But if you look at historically in the last 10 years or 15 years, we have been done reasonably well as far as industry is concerned and IT. Yes, last 3-4 years could have been a little bit of an issue, but signals here have been very, very, very positive.
Okay. I'm keeping my fingers crossed for your sake that the positive signals do turn out to actually good business. From a perspective of someone who sells in these cities, Sahil Kapoor, tell me, Bangalore versus Chennai, everyone's hopeful about Bangalore. It has a great story going other than infrastructure, but we are not here we understand those are issues, but do you have the same confidence about Chennai as Ajit Chodia? Do you think sales are likely to pick up? Because so far numbers don't support that at all. Sahil Kapoor?
See, we would personally put our money on Bangalore because even the commercial activity has been pretty good in that particular region. Chennai, if compared to Bangalore, I would not really want to put my money over there because it's been a slow city. The commercial development, even the residential development, it's a slow city as compared to Bangalore. So, I mean, we have done way better in Bangalore in terms of sales because of the job opportunities, the startup culture, the IT sector, and the commercial activity. We have been able to do pretty well in Bangalore. Okay. Chennai is still far behind. I think a couple of years still to go for Chennai to match up with the kind of numbers which Bangalore has been doing.
Of course, that we all agree to. I mean, there's a lot of catching up to do. But Jaggi Marwa, are you as hopeful as Ajit Chodia is that ease of doing business in Chennai is now likely to improve? I mean, the government, the noises that are coming from the government will actually translate into action?
I think it's like Ajit said, I think the mood is slightly positive, to say the least right now. But honestly, I think from the perspective of what Chennai plagues from in commercial development is that you don't have too many city players who are actually putting money to do commercial development there. So they typically depend on other city developers like the Rahejas from Mumbai or the Tatas who come into Chennai, or now Embassy from Bangalore, or Prestige from Bangalore. So these are the guys who actually, these are the developers who actually are putting in money in a city in Chennai. The big problem is the Chennai developers are all not putting money in commercial real estate. That's number one. Number two, from a residential perspective, I think the projects are not the large projects. You don't see the large mixed-use development projects in Chennai. which is also becoming a big problem because with plaguing infrastructure, every city is going to have these huge problems that people want to work, live, play at one location. I think that's the trend, and I think Chennai needs to buck up in terms of getting the large mixed-use developments into those cities, into that city.
Mr. Chodia, it comes as a little bit of a negative for you that even outsiders and large consultants believe that Chennai developers need to take a larger punt with commercial real estate. Is it because you believe that there aren't enough takers for Chennai's commercial and office space? What's the problem here? Because you yourself have been a big player.
No, I don't. In a way it is right what they say. The local developers have not taken up to commercial real estate for the simple reason that they have burnt their fingers in the early 2000, the early part when 2004, 2005, when there was a proliferation of IT with the shops being given for a higher FSI. So development came in all areas, and especially in the far-flung areas, and there it was becoming difficult to lease. There are certain areas where the leasing has not taken place even after 7 years and 8 years after the building has been built. So people have found this residential to be a much easier option to develop. It is the point of least resistance. But going forward, I am sure now the market is, there will be a shift from Bangalore. Let's accept it, Bangalore is choked with 10 million and 11 million square feet of office space, and you come onto Outer Ring Road, it takes you 20 minutes to come out of a campus itself, and thereafter into the road, it takes you 2 hours to reach your house. So that is the reason probably Hyderabad is seeing attraction, and I see no other place which can fulfill whatever is there in Bangalore in terms of talent other than Chennai and Hyderabad.
Okay, so let's shift focus on Hyderabad. Let's keep our fingers crossed for Chennai's real estate market and hope both residential and commercial will see better days to come, but it still seems a little distant. The fact that Bangalore is choking up and Hyderabad's the beneficiary of it, Mr. Sharma, that's a fact, isn't it? And it's something that everybody is noticing in a big way.
See, what is a fact, it definitely will get noticed, Manisha. And whatever the panelists have been telling, there is an element of truth. The beauty is that what I personally believe, the systems and the processes and the ability of the government to execute whatever it desires, in Chennai it is the highest. You must have also observed that when the Telangana was carved out from Andhra Pradesh, initial feedback about Hyderabad and as well as about Telangana state was not that encouraging. It is probably after the visit of this Apple CEO, Mr. Cook, and the way the IT minister and KTR has handled the whole scenario, there is a renewed optimism. And at the same time, the kind of promises, giving penalty, time-bound clearances and other things has helped ensuring that Hyderabad comes back in the radar, which is a very good sign. Similarly, I personally believe that what we are commenting today about is the Bangalore's infrastructure challenges and the Chennai's whatever has happened in last 3-4 years. I think both the governments in Chennai as well as in Karnataka, they have taken very positive and fast steps. In Karnataka, in Bangalore, we have a dedicated, very senior minister looking after the Bangalore's infrastructure. 7,000 crore from the state budget has been earmarked to improve upon the infrastructure. On a daily basis, things are getting reviewed. Similarly, I am getting the feedback this time that in Tamil Nadu, Chennai, where Mr. Ajit Rodia, what he has been telling, there is an element of truth. Things have started improving. It will take time for us to get noticed. And Chennai, I personally believe, has far better infrastructure, far greater talent than any other city. Save except that Bangalore's climate, nobody can beat.
All right. So you're also very hopeful about Chennai. I'm glad to hear that 3-4 years has really pulled that city down. It has a lot of potential in terms of talent, infrastructure, and of course, land also available without getting choked up. Jaggi Marwa, place Hyderabad in this context. I mean, it was an easy spillover. It's also a very good PR story, Hyderabad is. And going forward, though, there's also a question of it not having enough A-grade office space. So if you were to weigh out Hyderabad vis-a-vis, let's say, a Chennai in terms of who's going to move forward faster? Where would you put your bets?
I think between the two cities of Chennai and Hyderabad, Chennai has definitely, got his act together in terms of infrastructure. In fact, I was reviewing the entire network of rail connectivity in Chennai. Suburban railways, metro rail, peripheral rail, suburban rails are all connected today in such a manner that over the period of next 2 to 3 years, you will see the real, people will benefit a lot in terms of, the connectivity that the government has invested in Chennai. I think the only issue that Chennai would face is the prolonged approval and statutory approval issues that Chennai is always plagued with. But having said that, on the other side, Hyderabad, I think with the proactive governance and the way things are moving, definitely Hyderabad is definitely going to score, especially the commercial real estate side. You will see a lot of renewed interest, especially from the private equity side. The private equity funds are slowly landing into Hyderabad, understanding the markets better, because there's a huge demand-supply mismatch which was there last 2-3 years. Will surely get a big lot of affection from a lot of players across the country into Hyderabad.
Sahil, what's your own summary of Hyderabad? Because, we keep talking about, we look at price appreciation. Now, Hyderabad was a market which was stuck for so long, so any improvement obviously looks much better than, let's say, a price improvement in Gurgaon or even in some of the Bangalore cities. But are you seeing real demand in Hyderabad in some of the key markets?
See, in the last couple of years, with the political and the social environment getting better in Hyderabad, I think the demand has definitely risen. We have seen a lot of NRIs renewing their interest in the Hyderabad market. A lot of people have been coming back. There was a lot of shift from Hyderabad to Bangalore. There was a lot of migration of people which has now stopped. In fact, what has happened is, and what has given the advantage to Hyderabad is that the Amravati and Vijayawada belt, it has not been so promising as the claims were. So that has again given advantage to Hyderabad. And with a lot of companies, IT companies like Apple and Google showing their interest in Hyderabad, in the high-tech city, I think a lot of people are interested in investing money in terms of the apartment. The affordability factor is still there, which is not so much there as far as Bangalore and Chennai is concerned. You can still get an apartment at around 40 odd lakhs in the main livable area in Hyderabad, which is not the case in Bangalore and Chennai.
So you're saying that it's still better price. It's still better price.
Coming in from a lot of cities in that city.
Okay, fair enough. So the final word, let me get Jaggi Marwa to actually give me a final rating of these three cities. In terms of 2016, we've already got Mr. Desi Sharma saying that we are not going to see any price revival. So let's assume that there's not going to be any price revival, but in terms of resi sales revival, Bangalore is already seeing a substantial sales revival. Hyderabad is also seeing a sales pickup. Chennai, do you think, will end up seeing some beginnings of green shoot?
I think it will be still, from a residential perspective this year and the next 6 months would be Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai in that order. And that would be my gut feel. In the commercial side, I would say Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, purely because there's enough supply coming into Chennai.
All right. Gentlemen, I'm going to conclude there. Thank you so much for joining me. It's always interesting to pitch one city against another. Having said that, a buyer isn't going to buy in Bangalore. If he wants to live in Chennai, he will come to you, Mr. Chodia, and ask for a good apartment. But it's this is not a market for investors at all, frankly. We are still saying it's a market only ripe for end users, not to wait on the sideline, but re-enter the market and find their best bargain. But thanks very much. It's always interesting to have you on board and hear out all these interesting points about what's happening in these southern cities. That's it from me on the Realty Debate, the premier platform to ring in and ring out the big issues in real estate. So don't forget to tune in every Thursday, 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. That's when we come to you. Your feedback is always welcome. You can reach us on property@ndtv.com or just follow us on our Facebook and Twitter handle with your comments. Always happy to get your suggestions and feedback. Goodbye.